Good. Good. Hi, everyone. We're so happy that you're here. We are extremely excited to learn about the journey of Isabel Schwartz, who is going to attend a boarding school in a couple of days, right? Is that correct? She's starting in just a couple of days. So here we are. Do you mind sharing with us when exactly do you begin school right now?
Yeah, so my first day at campus is August 30th, and then I think my first day of school is September 1st.
So here we are, literally a dozen days away from starting boarding school, and you're giving us close to an hour of your time. So without further ado, we want to hear about you. Can you tell us about yourself? And then we're going to go into your journey. Go right ahead.
Yeah, of course. I'm Isabel Schwartz. I'm going to be a new sophomore at Deerfield Academy. Before this, I went to Lab Middle School, and then I went to Hunter College High School for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And I have a lot of extracurriculars that I do, including being on a swim team for 7 years. Also, I founded a nonprofit called Foundation Beauty, and we facilitate the donation of beauty and hygiene products to low-income students. And I've also done fencing for a couple of years.
Can you share any other extracurricular activities that you've done quickly before we go into the
Over
school?
the past couple summers, I've also gone to numerous sleepaway camps, academic camps at different colleges with programs like CTY. I've done volunteer programs like Rustic Pathways in Costa Rica this summer. And I've also done just things with my interests and, for example, a Spanish camp for a month, an immersion one.
So let's begin. And I just want to say thank you so much for doing this. And I just want to remind everyone that we're also going to totally plug Isabel's nonprofit as well. I'm going to be typing it into the group so that we can try to support it. Isabel, can you tell us, let's do a boarding school for beginners. Let's begin. First and foremost, what's boarding school? Like, what is it? Okay.
I mean, it's just a normal school, I guess, but then you live with your peers, you live with your teachers, and I think you just form a stronger community because of that, because they're basically shown into your family. And so you'll have a teacher who lives in your hall with you, and you just have so many more resources and just so many things that are available to you, like basically in your house.
So if you could start the journey, because you're born and based in New York City, and so many of the families and students who are listening are in New York City. Let's start from the very beginning. What prompted you to explore boarding school as an option?
I think I'd never really heard of it before, applying, and I just thought that it would be a good option considering the global pandemic to be able to go outside more. My school is completely virtual, and also just being able to make friends and see people. And so that's initially why I considered it. And then after exploring more boarding schools and just seeing the options that they had to offer, I think it was definitely something that I realized I wanted to do. And that was it.
So did you research the schools online? Did you wind up visiting any of the schools in person? Like, we really just want to understand the process from the beginning. Like, how did you get started researching the
Yeah,
schools?
so I started researching them online. I made a list of ones that I applied to and wanted to apply to, and then I visited a couple of them in person that I could and interviewed in person.
So how does the process begin? So now you've decided you want to explore boarding schools. What's the very first step after you've identified a couple of schools that you want to apply to?
So after that, you start the application process. There's a specific website that almost all of the New England area boarding schools have to use for their application, and it's called Gateway to Prep.
Do
And
you mind sharing it
yeah,
on your screen? Let's just take a look at it, okay? And if you could just tell the parents how old you are, just so that they understand, like, timeline wise, what
yeah.
age you were applying.
So I am 15 and I applied for 10th grade, but most people would apply for 9th grade. So
Okay, so let's take a look.
can you see it okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good. So This is the website Gateway to Prep Schools, and I've made an account already. That's just a random email. It's applicantsample3@gmail.com. And so essentially here are all the schools that you can apply to on this website. It's a lot of them. So I'm just going to choose one. Since I'm going to Deerfield, I'll choose Deerfield, and I'll walk you guys through quickly how you would apply. So I'll do
Perfect.
fall boarding, and I'm going to apply for grade 9. And I'll also choose another school just in case the process is a little different. Let me just wait for it to add. Okay, and then I'll choose Choate. Okay, so now once you do that and you go to the schools, then you can go to the checklist. And in the checklist, it has all the things that you need to do. And so it keeps you really organized. But before that, you need to do the prerequisites. And so that would be part 1.
So I just switched you to Spotlight, so it should, the screen should show really well now.
Yeah, okay.
Go
And
ahead.
then, so to do the prerequisites, to get the essay questions, you do a start new. I'm sorry, it keeps making new tabs for everything I do. Okay. And then you just put in your information. So because it's a sample, I did applicant sample. I did my gender, current grade, random birth month, and then you put in country of birth. So I'll do United States, city of birth, new. Sorry, give me a second. Sorry.
Thank you so much for doing this. So parents and everyone who's listening, what we're doing now is just walking through an application just so we get a feel for what the first steps are with applying to boarding school.
So my typing's not working right now on it, but essentially you go through and you give your information. So you do country of birth, city of birth, basically where you're from, a bit of background about you, and then you'll put your contact information. So for that, I put the Queller address, and
Okay.
then you'll put your city, town, basically where you're from, your email, all your information.
So you just created like a dummy profile, right?
Yeah,
It's just a simple profile. So everyone, if you wanted to do that, you could do it because you're not submitting it. This is just a simple pretend profile. I've actually done this quite a bit for the Common App. All right. As you're clicking through, go right ahead.
And then after that, you'll do educational background. So I put Deerfield, and then you just put all the past schools you've been to, the school addresses, information about them. There's multiple schools. It asks about disciplinary actions, and then it asks about standardized testing. And this is an important thing to be able to schedule. And actually some schools will, if you get a certain test score, will send you like pamphlets and stuff because they see your test score for the SSAT and ICE. For my school year and my application, I took both the SSAT and the ICE, and I took them in January and February. But there's a lot of
Yeah, theoretically, could you have taken the PSAT, SAT, and ACT in your application as
I
well?
mean, I don't think they're looking for the SSAT and ICE, but you can put that in there as a test score.
So, okay, we're going to talk about testing more, but basically these are the 2 exams you need to get into boarding school.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going.
And so
You were 14, like navigating
yes,
this.
I was 14 when I was applying.
So this is what we're looking at is usually what like 13 and 14-year-old applications look like, right? Is that
So
right?
after this, everyone will put in their interest and achievement. So you can choose whatever it is. There's a lot of options depending on what you do individually. So you can put it, for example, ice hockey, and you can put how much you're involved in it. So years of experience, hours per week, and all these things that they get a sense of kind of your extracurriculars and what you do. And you can put in multiple. And there's just some short questions about your achievements in that. After that is family information. So they ask about your parents and your addresses and your guardians. And it's pretty simple. I think parents usually fill that out just to get a sense of your family,
This looks very much like the college application, so
essentially.
lots of data.
Yeah, so family information, family, where they work, their businesses, and what schools they've been to. And if you have siblings that either go to the school or just what school they go to and alumni for these schools, then you can also put that in. Additional information. So this is just things that you want to upload. So for example, if you do ice hockey or if you do, for example, theater, then you can put in a PDF or a video of what you do so they can get a sense of like how good you are at it and stuff like that. And then for financial aid, you can press this so the school knows that you will be applying for it. After that, you schedule your interview, and usually I pulled up a tab. You do that on the school website. And so here is the Deerfield one, and so they have some steps for you. Most of the schools, if you're applying to them, do have steps for what you're going to do. So first you would submit the information form on the individual website, so you make an account on each one. So for example, if you're applying to Deerfield, Hotchkiss, whatever it is, then you would put in your email, your parents' email, and then you would get a login for making your interview. And so you would schedule an interview, a campus visit possibly. I mean, it depends on the school. And then you have your standardized testing. You fill out this pre-application, which is a candidate profile. And then you do the short answer and essays. So after you finish a candidate profile, then is when you have access to short answers and personal essays. After that, you put in your recommendations. So depending on the school, it's different recommendations that they want. So Deerfield wants any academic teacher, a math teacher, and an English teacher.
So you asked which grade level teachers did you ask for these recommendation letters?
I asked, it depended on the school. If they asked for math and English, I would ask my current teacher. And if they asked for like a specific type of class, or if my teacher wasn't available to do it, then I would ask the grade that I did before. So I would ask 8th grade or 9th grade.
So can you just kind of walk us through how the recommendation works? Did you, because I'm just in terms of college, it's a separate email. Did you approach them? Did you email them? Did you request? Did you use this portal how do you request the recommendation letter itself?
So you request the recommendation letter through the Gateway to Prep website, which is in part 3. And for emailing my teachers, because I was virtual all year, I had to email them. So I would email them first asking them, and if they said yes, and I would be like polite, of course, and I would also include my interests and things about me so that they knew what to write about in the recommendation. And then if they said yes, I would request them in the portal. So essentially you just put in their name, what subject they teach, and their email. And that is it for recommendations. Also, a lot of schools like to have writing samples, and so you'll choose either English or a history paper usually for them to see, and they just want to get a sense of your writing and the grading at your school currently, so then they can get a sense of like what your grades are like and your skills at writing when it's not for essay questions. And then they want a brief description of it. After this, you go to the essay questions. So for the essay questions, you already usually have this candidate information filled out, and it's just the same questions as before. And then you go to the essay questions. So they're usually not very long essays. It's 1,600 characters. It's usually 300 to 500 words. And these ones, there's definitely more creative options and also more analytical essays that you can write about. And so they usually ask one about the school and like personal ones so that you can write about yourself. And so there's two different essays that you have to write. This one, there's usually shorter ones. Some schools have like short answers where you enter like a sentence or a word that would describe and answer the question. And then there's other ones where it's like a couple sentences and then like a full essay. And so for the schools, since they have personal essays and some have more than one, you have to usually write a lot and edit a lot. And I think it's important to definitely start early in this process. Start early getting through part one with the candidate profile so that you can have time to access the essays and write them.
Can you just give us a little summary with Deerfield? I mean, it was COVID, it's the pandemic, you really wanted in-person classes. Can you give us the gist of what you wrote? How did you learn about Deerfield?
I mean, I wrote mostly personal things. I wrote about things that happened in my life. I wrote about my nonprofit. I wrote about just experiences that I've had. And I think it definitely, depending on the question, but I wrote about my brother and I wrote about school and my summer and just things that I thought could be really descriptive.
Mhm. So let's take a look at this. Can you go through this? Can you go through some of these questions?
Yeah, so first question, that's definitely a more fun one. Select a pair of words from the following list and share with us why you like one more than the other. Fruit or vegetables, dog or cats. So this is a fun one where you kind of just have an opinion and you write about it. So you can probably write about an experience you have with winter, summer, or something, describing a great summer you had. And you can say, that's why I like summer more. And if you describe it really well and you show passion for something, you show a really great time, then it can showcase your writing skills but also be fun to write. Another one, what is one of your favorite sayings or idioms? So I actually had this one as a short response for another school. I don't remember what I said, but I mean, I think this one is good if you have a really good one to write about, but otherwise I think it's hard to describe it that much if it's a long essay. As you researched Deerfield Academy, what was something on our website that you found surprising? So that one, it's good to talk about, all the resources that they had and something really, really specific because they want to make sure that you did your research. And so you can talk about one class or one professor that you researched a lot and you found really interesting. And it shows them that you know what you're talking about with the school. Does your name hold any significance in your family? How has your name impacted your life? So this one's really good if you have a unique name or a really common name because you can say, oh, I've met like 100 Isabels in my life, blah 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 blah, like this one. So I think it's important. This is actually a really good question, and you can write like, oh, my grandfather had the same name, or just that significance. What is one book that everyone should read and why? This is a good one too. It was one of my short answers, and this one you can write about basically any book because if you describe it well enough, a lot of books can have significance, even children's books, and you just have to explain it well. For the personal essays, what is your favorite piece of music or art? This is a good one too, because if you're really passionate about music or art, and for example, even if you're like a creator of art, then it'll show your passion, it'll showcase it through this essay question. And it's a good one for description because you can describe a painting or you can describe like the beat of a song that's really specific and shows that you really are into it. Another one, at Deerfield, we welcome and affirm all students in their broad range of identities. How has your identity impacted your viewpoint on the world around you? So this one's good too because you can say something unique about yourself. And so whatever it may be about your race, about your culture, your parents, and you can explain with anecdotes, you can explain with a lot of things how it's impacted you. And so you can be descriptive in this one. You can talk about yourself. It's a good one, I think. And tell us about someone that has inspired, motivated, or helped you shape who you are today. So I had this one too as one of my essay questions. There's a lot of them that they repeat year to year because I think they're good ones and they know it because they help just get a better sense of the student. And so this one, I talked about someone who was the head of another nonprofit that I donated to. And so one, I could talk about my nonprofit, and two, she was just really inspirational. She's a really amazing woman who helps abused girls and find confidence. And so she really did inspire me, and it was genuine, and I think it showed through in my essay. And so that's all the essay questions. And then you just go through some simple application information about Deerfield. And then you have your signature, and then you submit it. And here you can use information that wasn't accessed or like that you didn't put into your application otherwise. And that's basically the application.
And so what we're looking at right now is gateway.applywithus.com. And this is the main form. Can you go back to the schools list?
Yes.
This way everyone can see the schools. So are these all different boarding schools? Is that correct?
Sorry, let me just go. Here. So it says their location too. And then you just choose the ones and you choose your grade that you're applying to, and I'll scroll through them so people can see.
You said you were also accepted to the Hotchkiss School, right? Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
Good. Okay, we'll go through the schools in a bit. I just want to see the list.
Yeah, so that's the list.
So you can also select residential status, right? So you can choose residential, not, is that correct?
Yes.
Or day schools. Let's look at the day schools. Can we look at just Andover? Let's see how to be Andover. So let's pretend you want to add Andover, right? Go to Andover. Right, so you would add it to the list and then you go into the questions, correct? Go. Select the term. Is everyone following along? Good. Boarding. Add. So everyone should be following the steps. Pretty self-explanatory.
And then you do the same process as I did for the Deerfield application. So you would, let me just wait for it to load. You would go to part 1. And then you would go to Andover. This is the same candidate profile, so you only have to fill it out once.
Good.
And it's the same one, you know, with your parents' information, your previous schools.
So everyone listening, this is almost identical to the common application for college. There's one main form. So for college, it's called the Common App. So for high school, these particular high schools, it's called the candidate profile. So it's the main base. And then everyone has different supplemental essays, recommendation letters, so on and so forth, which is really great. Isabel, this is super informative. Can we go back to just hearing more about you, your feedback, your schools? I think that we got a lot out of this. You know what? Yeah, good. Let's go back. All right, thank you. That was really informative, right, everyone? Yes, say yes. Okay. So Isabel, let's go back and let's kind of pick at your brain, okay? So you decided you're going to apply to boarding school. You went through the application process. So you went online, you researched, you applied, and I assume you were selected for interviews, right? I'm walking through the process. So can you just give us like a timeline? So you know what, let's actually start from the super beginning. You decide you're going to apply to these schools. There's an entrance exam to take, right? So can you let's take a few steps even more back. So now you're okay, I'm going to take a test to get in. Can you begin to just talk about what's the testing requirement to get into these schools?
Yeah, so you can either take the ISEE or you can take the SSAT, but most schools prefer the SSAT because it's the standard one for boarding schools. And that one is scored in percent, so up to 99%. And there is a math section and an English section. And for that, I did prep with some of the Queller's SSAT books.
Yay.
And they're really good for analogies and just all the things that the test had. And so once you have the test and you took it, then and you've taken it, then you have these codes from each of the schools that you choose to apply to on Gateway to Prep. And so you'll put in these codes to your test, and it'll send your test scores to the schools and they can receive them.
So pretend you want to take this exam. If you could just quickly do a share screen, what's the website to try to take these exams? So let's say you've decided, okay, I want to take the ISEE or I want to take the SSAT. What's the website that you go to take these exams?
Okay, you go to SS. I'll do SSAT because it's the more common one.
For boarding schools, right?
Actually, 1 second. Let me share my. Let me just get it on and share my screen.
So everyone paying attention right now, we're gonna look. So we just saw the candidate profile. We viewed the portal to apply, but just going back, if you're the first thing you need to do is start the testing requirements. So there are two different exams. One is the SSAT. One is the IC. Isabel, it's okay if you don't want to, if you can't do the share screen, we can just move ahead. I just want to make it clear to everyone listening that there are two different tests. And then the one for boarding school that's more common is the SSAT. We don't have to do the share screen because we're going to run out of time anyway. So what are the guts? What's inside of these exams?
So these exams are similar to a test I took, the Hunter test actually, and it just has an English part, math part, and it's all multiple choice. And it's around 2 hours and 20 minutes long, the SSAT that I took. And so you go to a testing center and you can do it either on your computer or you can do it in writing. And so I did both. I did on a computer and writing, and I just wanted to see which one I would be better on. And there's also analogies on the SSAT. And so you have to know vocab, you have to know how to do the different relationships between them.
So you take the SSAT and the IC. So there are multiple IC exams. Which one did you take as well?
I mean, I don't think there are multiple. Do you mean by month? Like,
No, you took it's is it the upper level
oh
one?
yeah,
Is
it's the
that
upper level because you would be applying for high school. High school is upper level.
so you took the upper level IC and you took the SSAT.
Yes.
And then what did you feel those exams were similar? Did you feel the content was similar?
I think it definitely depends on where your strengths are. The analogies from the SSAT were a big thing, and I personally thought that the SSAT was easier to get a higher score on.
And then going into testing, because it's really been a journey, and I'm so happy to share and to plug that Isabel's been at Color for several years.
4 years.
So did you feel that like prior prep was like a building block to these exams? Like what kind of, if you could just talk about your testing journey for a moment?
Yeah, so I started off at Queller in the summer of 6th grade, and I did a hunter prep course. And then during the fall, I did another hunter prep course. And that was definitely where, I got my knack for standardized testing. And since that, I've been able to do it because it's all kind of the same. Once you know the tips and tricks that you learn from these courses, and once you know like what they're asking and how to solve these types of problems, it sticks with you. And it's been 4 years. And so after doing the hunter test and getting accepted, I did PSAT 89 prep with a tutor from Queller, and I've also done the SSAT books from Queller and some of the SAT prep books.
And it's funny because as I was drafting up the bio and editing, I actually recall you taking the PSAT at Queller for Johns Hopkins. It's really funny. You've really been along the journey because Queller, as you know, was a startup. It was a baby business and it really grew over the years from one location to the other. So I guess I want to take a public opportunity to say thank you for following because I really didn't know what I was doing, Isabel. And here you are kind of taking every exam that I threw your way. So I'm really thankful that you joined in the journey. It was really just amazing remembering that pathway. Um, so as we're speaking right now, here you are. You've taken the SSAT, you took the ISCE, you decided you're going to apply to boarding school. You've applied, I'm assuming, to 4 or 5 schools. Is that about right? Is that how many schools you applied to?
I applied to 10 or 11 just because I wanted to make sure that I got in. But if you can narrow down your list, it's good because there are a lot of essay questions, there are a lot of interviews to keep track of. But there's always schools, and it's good to broaden your range and make sure that you're applying to schools that are, a good fit for you.
So now here you are applying, you've submitted the application, right? And then you are asked to do an interview. So can you now tell us, like, what do they ask from you in the interview process? How does, like, give me like the visual of how that works?
So interview, they ask a couple basic questions like how was your school year, what subject you like best, and then they go into more personal questions. So like describe, if we took a screenshot of you, I remember this question, where would it be and why, and like how does that represent you? And they ask about your extracurriculars. And so because you've already submitted part of your application, the candidate profile, then they'll have some information on you. And so they can also ask, mostly they ask, why do you think you're fit for boarding school? Why do you want to go to boarding school? What do you think is special about our school? And so before that, you definitely need to do your research. And like the essay question that I talked about earlier, you need to know, your specifics about the school. So a specific class that you like, a specific sport or team that you're really interested in there, or a club, so that when they ask you, why is this school a good fit for you, which is one of the really important questions, and you can answer because of this reason, because of this reason. And they know that it's something that you're really interested in about the school. And
This year, were the interviews virtual or were they in person?
all of my interviews this year were virtual over Zoom.
How long were the interviews?
I think it depended on the one and depended on the time limit. And so some of them would be like 20 to 30 minutes. Some of them were like an hour and 15 minutes. It also depends on, who you get for your interview and how many questions they have for you and how long you explain things.
How did you stay organized? Because you had, like, let's say 10 interviews, you applied to 10 schools, you wrote 20, 30, oh my goodness, 40 different essays. Your mom, your dad, they were writing parent statements, which I haven't gone into yet. How do you keep track of all of this paperwork?
So I made a big Microsoft spreadsheet. And so for that, I made a tab for every school, and I put down when I was applying, put down what I was done with. So it would be interviews, it would be candidate profiles, it would be what they received, what I need to give to them, and like if I put my application in, if I had my interview and stuff like that, just to keep organized with every single school specifically.
And then you go through the interview, and then your parents have to do something called a parent statement. Do you recall that, and like how did that process work, or what is that? What is a parent statement?
So a parent statement is just basically talking about your kid, and they ask you general questions. They ask, why do you think your kid would be successful at boarding school? And I think my dad can talk more about this and about the questions, but it's, just to get a sense of your family and the kid, and if you think that your kid would be independent enough to be able to go to boarding school.
So you know what, towards the end, maybe we'll have your dad just kind of chime in with the parent statement. I want to just keep going through the process. So you went for the interview, you submit the parent statement, and then how are the recommendation letters going in? Are the teachers emailing them to you? Are the teachers emailing them to the schools? Is it through the portal? How are these rec letters making it to the schools?
So for every school, I talked about earlier how you email your teacher and you request a recommendation letter. And so it all goes through the portal because of confidentiality. They don't want you seeing the recommendation. And so, some teachers, it depends on the teacher. You'll have to ask them a couple times. You'll have to definitely remind them and say like, oh, I just wanted to follow up about my recommendation, and make sure that gets in on time. And so it'll all go through the portal. And then once you submit everything, so once you have your candidate profile, once your teachers have submitted your teacher recommendations, you usually get an email from the portal. So just to keep you on track, and then I would put that in my spreadsheet.
And this spreadsheet was something you did through the Google Doc, right? Is that correct? It was a Microsoft spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
there's no way, would you be able to pull it up, or is it something, just because lately I've been kind of speaking to a lot of kids and parents who, well, okay, fine. I'm speaking to a lot of parents where they just want to understand how to help their kids stay organized. So it's just been a popular question. It's just, how do you stay organized? I noticed that question actually. I get it 7 days a week. Can you advise an organization? So how did you keep track of applying to 10 different schools? That would be something if we can go through it. So is everyone following along? If you have any questions, you could type it into the chat, but this is really important to note that these are rather lengthy applications, and then you just want to stay on top of your testing. Do you happen to have that, Isabel, or we're okay with moving ahead?
Yeah, I have it. I mean, right now I only have on it when I was taking my SSAT because I deleted it if it was done. But then down here I have all these schools that I applied to.
Got it. So I just want to see like what you tabbed. So can you go kind of to the beginning? Okay.
All the tabs are the same currently, because I
Oh, I see.
spreadsheet, but before it would have through all these columns. On
So
my
everyone take a look towards the bottom,
Yeah,
just
but
so
the
that you see.
bottom, you
So each individual
yeah,
school had its own spreadsheet, the way that you did it, right?
yes.
Got it. And
I
that's
think
how you
it's
kept
just
track of
easier for me
everything.
to visualize with it.
This is really helpful because it kind of like shows how to stay organized, which is great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, If you could give some advice to students, I think it would just be great to kind of close up the webinar with just advice, with guidance. What should students know about the application to boarding school? Like, what should they know about this path that you've really gone through and overcome and succeeded in? You got into a top-rated boarding school. It's extremely well known. It was a very competitive application. There were many parts to it. What advice can you give to students who are applying to the or considering this?
I think, as we just talked about, staying organized because it can get overwhelming. I had, a very, very large document with all my essays. And so after that, I just was stressed out. And so I made a folder in Google Docs with specific like documents that had the essays for every single boarding school. And so it just kept me organized and it was just called like boarding school essays. And I think that's definitely important with your interviews. You want to make sure you're on time. You want to make sure that you're cleaned up and that you can speak loudly and enthusiastically about the things you've done. Because if you show that you've done things with a passion and that whatever it is that you do, like whatever niche, really specific thing that you do, and if you can explain it well, then I think it comes through much better to the interviewers. Also, I think just knowing what you want in a school and not applying to schools just to apply to schools, but applying to schools that have your interests and have things that you can see yourself doing in the future in high school.
So I want, and I wrote about this, but we haven't really talked about it. If you could type your nonprofit in, and I want to zero in on it because it speaks a lot about who you are as a person. And quite frankly, I think it really shines. It shows this is who you are. You're not someone who just, sat around during the pandemic, or you really made a conscious effort to make a difference. And I really want to commend you for doing that, because you're a mover and you're a shaker. And I kind of feel like I'm speaking to the future president when I speak to you. So what can you show us? Can you share screen the nonprofit?
Yeah, of course. Give me a
So this is Isabel. This is a little piece of her personality. And I really want to take a moment to let it shine, because this is something that you created. You drove this idea. You approached me a year ago, asking, if we can get involved, which of course we're, always happy to support any entrepreneurial ideas, especially a woman designed entrepreneurial idea. So I really just want to say that, if we're able to, I would love to feature it if we could, just the nonprofit and kind of just what the origin of it is, because it speaks a lot about you and about you as a person. Are we able to do the share screen for it? Is that okay?
yeah, just give me once.
So everyone, just keep in mind that there's so many different amazing parts to Isabel and her application, and definitely her confidence and clarity in speaking. This is something that shines in what we're doing right now. Keep in mind how young she is, but here we are. This is someone who, again, did not sit around. This is someone who really decided that she's not just gonna, I don't know, she's like, I'm gonna make a difference. I mean, I almost feel it, and that's something that's very clear. Okay, how are we doing with the share screen? Good. Is it going through?
Getting the link to foundation for me.
Okay. Is it going through? So everyone, while we're just waiting to properly set up the share screen, I want to take a quick look at the chat if you guys have any questions. Does anybody have or no? Perfect. So this is a
Okay, let me.
all right, we'll go through it. Just turn off the audio for the other Zoom, okay? Do you
Yeah.
want me to do it? I could do the share screen.
I can do it. Let's share my screen, share screen.
Okay, and I've had that happen also. So everyone give it 1 second, okay? Here we go. So this is just a peek into Isabel's personality, and it's really who you are. You're a mover, you're a shaker. So let's take a look. So what is this? Can you tell us about this? What is this creation?
Yeah, so this is our main page, and it has our mission statement that I came up with over the summer of 2020. And so you can press learn more. And
So I'm actually gonna joke. This is so funny. Before I start a Zoom, I put on lipstick and I like put on perfume, and like no one smells me. Is that the weirdest thing? So I literally feel better having makeup. So I totally feel what you're doing, but I put on perfume. It's really weird. I'm kind of like getting ready for the Zoom. So can you just explain to us, what is this? What is this creation? Please let us know. Go ahead.
I definitely relate to that. So, during COVID, during quarantine, it was pretty lonely. I was just a small screen on people's computer and nobody would see me. And so, I started to put on makeup because, it was just a fun thing to do at first. But really, it gave me confidence and it made me more excited for the day, and it helped me, motivate, and it helped me to just get ready for the day. And so through that, I know because of just the situations that people are in, as well as the COVID pandemic, people aren't able to afford makeup, people my age. And I wanted to make a difference. And so I decided to make this nonprofit because I was inspired by just things that people are doing. People are doing amazing things during the pandemic. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to afford makeup and to be able to have access to beauty products like these. And I want other people to be able to have that as well that are my age. So I make beauty kits, and I've gotten donations around $400,000 from different companies such as Clos de Peau, such as Sephora and Necessaire and Fenty Beauty, and among other companies.
Can you show us some more of this? That's so cool. So can you kind of go through this why, like how did this come about, information?
Yeah, so it says here, and I also kind of explained it already, but it was really just like a touch of lip gloss or a little thing that would just brighten my day over quarantine. And I wasn't really talking to people. I wasn't talking to a lot of my friends because we are all remote and on Zoom. And so this was just something that I do, and it just made me a lot happier.
So if you could just put the link if anybody wants to donate or support this. I'm totally going to plug this nonprofit because I love it. And I love that you came up with this idea because it really does make a difference. And as I said earlier, I put on a few spritzes of perfume before the Zoom, which makes no sense in any way besides just making me feel better. So I feel fresher and I like to have my lipstick for the Zoom. So I just like, I felt that this was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, so for donations, it's donate product at foundationbeauty.org.
So can we shift gears quickly to your dad? Can your dad add a few words? Is that okay? Is he in the Zoom? Can he just maybe raise his hand if that's
Yeah, let me
possible?
stop my share and then I'll switch it over to him.
Good. Hello. Oh my God, we love the shirts. Hi, Howard. Howard, thank you so much for letting us borrow your daughter. And everyone, give Howard a big thank you. He's letting us, she's really volunteering and doing this. She has a really busy schedule. She's leaving in a couple of days. Thank you so much. Howard, can you give some advice to the parents who are listening about the application process from your perspective as a parent?
Yeah, I would say start early, because you don't want to wait till last minute and it will hit you at the end. If you wait till last minute when you have the parent essays, they don't take 10 minutes to create. I mean, you really need to understand why your kid is a good fit for this school. Because if your kid is, for instance, my Isabel is not good at dancing, so she won't write, I want to go to this school because they have an awesome dance program, right? Some schools like St. Paul's has an awesome ballet program, not useful for Isabel, right? So you want to kind of cater what you're writing to the student, right, and the school, and they'll see if it doesn't make sense. If your kid's awesome at swimming and the school doesn't have swimming, you're going to write about swimming in the essay, and how, no, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. So I think it's important to make sure you understand that. And I think also the schools are very different. Some schools are huge, some schools are not. Some schools have like 800 kids, some schools have 200 kids a year. I think you need to really understand who your child is, and if it's a right fit, understand why it's a right fit. Like Deerfield, I think is maybe 170 kids. Hotchkiss is almost the same number of kids, maybe a couple more or a couple less. But you get schools, that have 400 kids, and it's a very different kind of vibe that you get. So really take the time to kind of weed out the schools that make sense for you, so you're not applying to 30 schools, because they're not all going to be good fits. Just like, everybody who went to college, certain colleges are better fits than others. So I think that's important to understand. It's also important not to let your grades slip. I mean, these essays take a long time for the students to write, and she probably did more than most people would do, from a number of schools, just because she wanted to keep her options open. She still was able to get straight A's at Hunter while doing all this, which is not easy. I mean, you got to schedule visits, you got to schedule Zooms, you got to write the essays, you got to take the SSAT. So it's a lot of time, and the schools ask for more recent grades as well, some of the schools. So it's important. I think the January report card, most of the schools want the application by, I think, January 15th. So if you're, a lot of schools have like a November and January report card, they do want to see that later report card. So you can't let that slip during this time period. Teachers were, some not responsive, some were responsive. You got to stay on top of them, especially, in public schools. Isabel, I think, had one guidance counselor for 100 something students, and she was actually very responsive this year, which is great. But other schools don't have that. They're just not as responsive. So you really need to stay on top of them, and make sure they get the stuff in on time. But you don't want to write the recommendation after 3 days of school, because they have no idea who your kid is. So I think most of the schools recommend, like in November-ish, asking, officially asking the teachers, but maybe giving them a heads up a little bit before. Because a lot of the teachers who teach in high schools, if you're applying for like 10th grade or 11th grade, for instance, they have to write college applications, which probably are, in their mind, at least a priority. So it's just something to keep in mind as well. These teachers are writing a lot of recommendations. Another thing, don't be boring in your essays. Make it interesting. I mean, these people in the admissions, and I've talked to some of the admissions people afterwards. If it stands out, and just like on the Hunter prep that Isabel did, if it catches their attention, they're gonna want to read it. So that's something we actually learned years ago with when she got into Hunter, to kind of through Queller, of course, to keep that in mind. You got to have that hook. If you don't have the hook, you're just another student with could be perfect grades. They have a lot of people with perfect grades applying. just like many of the colleges. So just something that I found was important. One of the interesting things I see just from talking to other people, some kids actually repeat grades. So you might have done ninth grade at a school in the city, and then you may actually apply for ninth grade as well. So depending upon how strong your school is, they do that for a lot of sports. If kids are, doing sports, they might have you repeat, a grade when you start, so you're bigger and more mature. Um, a lot of schools don't do that, but boarding schools, I mean, there's kids who are, I think, 17 in her class. I think one kid may even be 18 in her class, and she's 15. So depending upon where they came from different countries or different sports or whatnot, we do see that, which I personally thought was just not used to that. And used to everybody being the same age.
That's so interesting. I have read The Outliers, and I've read The Smartest Kids in the World. So there's a lot of research supporting that, not having the very early start. It's only New York City, Howard, where they make everyone start kindergarten on these cutoffs. But it's actually very interesting. There's a lot of research supporting just developmental maturity. So that's really good. If you could please continue, it's really interesting because you're giving great advice to the
Yeah,
parents.
some of the things I noticed, I mean, some of the schools have like 95% boarding students, and some have, 20% day students. It really depends. Like in Deerfield, I think they have maybe 100 days. I don't know. I mean, maybe 80 day students who just live in the neighborhood, who go to it just like you'd go to like a Horace Mann or Riverdale or Dalton or whatever, right? So there are those people as well that do not live on campus. But that's really not offered for the most part unless you live in the neighborhood. But if anybody's planning on moving, for instance, it could be an option for one of these schools as well. I think that's just a very different dynamic as well. The sports programs at these schools are phenomenal. The resource at these schools are phenomenal. I mean, I think St. Paul's is just as an example. I think they have like 4 acres per student. As far as campus size, while you people here on the Zoom are probably from New York, where it's like 4 feet per student that you have at your disposal from a pure space perspective. And that's one of the great things about, during COVID, we know that St. Paul's, they just, and other schools, they're doing in-person classes, right? I think they have the resources to be able to make that happen, which a lot of the schools in the city don't have, especially public schools. So they, for instance, Deerfield, they said, we will be going in person, right? It's definite, and they reaffirmed it 2 days ago. While you got a lot of schools in the city who it's still up in the air. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with my 2 kids going to Nest. They may be in person, they may not be in person, they may have to wear a mask, they might not have to wear a mask, they might have after school, they may, who knows, right? Here, I find with the boarding schools, they're pretty, they have a plan. I mean, some of the schools have a very, detailed plan on exactly, how they're going to operate, and they have a lot of control over it, which over the environment. I mean, they can keep people off of campus to protect in like a little bubble, like I think the NBA did when they, had the playoffs or whatever. You don't let people in, and you can have more of a normal environment during this crazy time, which is one of the main reasons why we wanted to go to boarding school as well. Another great thing, I mean, they have 12, 14 kids in class. She just got her class list. I think half her class have 8 kids in them, which, is just phenomenal. I think that's the learning that you can get at some of these schools is different. And the bonds with the teachers and the other students with 8 kids in your class is a real opportunity. So again, that's another thing that kind of pushed us to say, hey, this is something that we really, want to invest in her future. That. And I think, that some of them will create classes for you. If your kid is like a super awesome harpist or whatever, they have the resources to do something with that. If you have a special skill that, just make it known to the school, because you'll stand out. If you like to write, or you like to do juggling or whatever, it doesn't matter if it's different, if it's special. That's kind of what matters from what I've seen in all the applications and all the people in admissions that I've talked to during because the parents get interviewed as well. It's not just the students, so just something to keep in mind. So that was kind of difficult to schedule as well, making sure Isabel's calendar matched up with mine and my wife's calendar as well. Another thing I found, for some reason, these schools seem to lose transcripts. Um, you're and it's not Hunter specific because this happened to other people as well. The school sends it in. I see a copy that they send it in, and for some reason it gets mixed in some file somewhere, and they just lose it. So you definitely want to double check. All of the schools have their own login. I think Isabel mentioned, and that'll show you if they're missing something. Do not count on the Gateway to Prep as your only source. Each school will have their own login. And double check there, because for multiple schools, we saw that they were missing some piece, some recommendation or something that might have been missing when it was submitted, because some people that are more old school now actually email a recommendation that has like an email address in the bottom. But most people will put it in the Gateway to Prep. So just double check everything, because if the application not complete, they just won't even read it.
I want to close because it's already 9 o'clock, and I want to take a minute to share. First of all, thank you. So everyone, please type in a huge thank you to Isabel and to Howard. And she could actually put your dad kind of back, because I'm totally complimenting you both right now. I want you both to know it's really been an honor to observe what it's like to just be an incredible parent, and just to watch this parent and student and really family. You're very supportive of every idea that your daughter has. You're just an amazing support system as parents. I'm also, truth be told, very blessed. My parents were extremely supportive, and whatever resources they had, they invested in my zany ideas and my very blue paint on the walls, just every idea I had. And I really want to just take a moment to publicly say, like, it is an honor for me as a young mom with little kids observing like just remarkable parenting. You are very supportive of your child's ideas, and I can only imagine how much you've rearranged your schedule and really turned your world upside down, and to put your daughter forward. And that's something that has been unbelievably clear with how you are. And you were in Queens, you were in Manhattan, and you also just made it look really simple. And I know it's not. And there were so many times over the years as a parent, I almost want to have a webinar where like we kind of like how parents get these kids, the development route. I really want to take a moment, because we have you on the Zoom, I've never done this before with Howard at all. And I want you to know that I'm observing it. Like, I have little kids, I'm observing what this incredible supportive parent is doing. And it's just amazing to watch. Isabel, going back, hello. Isabel, I have literally watched you blossom, and I am almost getting teary-eyed thinking that you were just an incredibly accomplished person. I could not stop thinking about how much you've done and how you're just very driven, and you're going to be a change maker. You're going places, you really are, and you're going to make a very big positive impact in this world on a global level, and I can see it. And I want to take this moment, because it's public and I don't really get to do it, just to say that I see just this flame inside of you. You're a change maker. You're an incredible human being. And I'm so happy that you're sharing this, and you're doing it wholeheartedly. You're not getting paid. You didn't even ask for any kind of compensation. I mean, you just really wanted to show people your path and how you made it from, just being a public high school student to navigating this journey to put yourself into the best light possible. Isabel, I want to say thank you. Howard, I want to say thank you. Everyone, something I love to do to close up these webinars is, if I could unmute everyone. Isabel, if you could do it on your end, just show me how to hit unmute. If we can just give her a huge thank you for this amazing webinar and all this content. I'm not sure where to do the unmute. Can you do it on your end? You have to just go to, I think it's chat or participants.
Yeah, I got it. Ask all to unmute.
Yeah, ask everyone, just keep hitting, ask everyone to unmute. Everyone say thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you,
Isabel.
Isabel.
Thank you so
Aren't
much.
we so
you.
inspired? Isn't it so inspiring? Look at her. She's going, she's moving, she's moving. This girl's going places, everyone. So stay tuned. She's making moves. Okay. I'm really excited. I'm excited about the next chapter. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Howard, for letting us borrow your daughter for an hour in her busy schedule. And good luck. Good luck getting ready in a couple of days for Deerfield. Everyone say congratulations again. Thank you. Everyone, you can unmute again. Say thank you, guys. Bye, everyone. Say thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye, Isabel. Farewell. Okay, bye, Howard. Thank you. Thank you so much for this webinar. We learned, okay? Thank you, everyone. Oh, this is so cute. I'm gonna take a picture of it. I'll show you the screen. Okay, go. Thank you. Thank you so much. All the best, okay? Farewell. Bye.